So as we continue our discussion of brakes, we've already established that safety is just huge whenever you're talking about brakes. And I think there's a sales opportunity for you because everybody cares about safety. They do care about power, they do care about performance, they do care about fuel economy, they do care about green, low emissions, but safety, most folks would say, is of primary concern. There's a couple of other issues with brakes. One is from time to time, if you guys are like most advisors, you hear squealing brakes out there. There's sort of a trade-off. Soft brake pads usually don't squeal very much at all, but they create a lot of dust. Harder brake pads might have more of a tendency to squeal without brake dust. So we kind of got to compromise the two. So there are some things, let's look at PowerPoint here. There's some things I've heard in the marketplace. Brake squeal is normal, all brakes squeal, just live with it. Hey, turn the radio up. To all of that, BG Products says wrong, wrong, wrong. Brakes should not squeal, and there should not be a sacrifice of any performance, brake dust, anything like that by not having squealing brakes. So the service that we bring to the table is about dealing with squealing brakes. Now, here's something from Honda. What is brake squeal? Honda says it's caused by a high-frequency vibration of the pad against the rotating disc. It's affected by several things: temperature, humidity, road conditions, junk on the road, and the composition of the brake pad. So that is, why the brakes squeal, kind of a harmonic resonance thing. So this service is about taking BG brake squeal, this little bottle right here, and as you see on the PowerPoint, we apply that directly to the face of the pad. It's kind of like rain falling on dry ground. Most of our technicians will heat up the pad just to kind of open the pores and help that work just a little bit better. But stop squeal is an integral part. The second thing, though, is something that usually goes largely unnoticed, and I really want to kind of paint you a picture, and that is this also comes with a little tube of BG brake lube that has brake grease in it for sliders and high points. And I guess suffice it to say, you got to be real careful when you put a lubricant near brakes, right? A lubricant and brakes don't necessarily mix. So it's got to stay where you put it. It's real important that it does its job, but it's got to stay where you put it. So let's just take a look at that. What I'm going to do is put a little squirt of the BG brake lube, which is grease, on our little stand here, and compare this with the grease that you guys are using now when you do this service. So, brakes get hot, right? The pads and the rotors get hot, so I'm going to apply a little bit of heat to this, and we're going to take a look and see what happens. So let's heat this up. Greases are made up of soaps and oil. Bob, can you see what's beginning to happen to this grease over here on the right? What's beginning to happen to that? Yeah, it's breaking down and melting. And again, one of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, that you want grease to do is stay where you put it. Well, it doesn't take much heat before literally this begins to drip off onto the mat down here versus the BG brake lube that stays in place. So it's going to survive the heat of the brakes. And honestly, Chris, that's what you want it to do, right? Now, you guys are advisors. So not that you're going to go into great detail with the customer about this and what you do, but I want you guys to know that when your technicians do a brake fluid service, not brake fluid, but when they do a brake pad service. By the way, since I mentioned that, whenever they do a brake pad service, obviously we want to do a brake fluid service, right? But whenever they do that brake pad service where they turn the rotors, put on new pads, we want to make sure that BG stop squeal is part of that and the BG brake lube is part of that. Now, look back at the PowerPoint again. What this is about is new brakes, lubricating the calipers, the new brake pads, clean everything up, treat the pads with stop squeal. What's in it for the customer? We want to get rid of the brake squeal. We want to provide security. We want to provide safety because it really comes down to this. This guy says, looks like you need a brake job. He says, what's that going to cost me? He says, somewhere between $100 and $500. And he says, depending on what? On whether you want to completely stop or just slow down. When we're talking about brakes, would y'all agree with this? Quality matters. You're a Ford dealership in a metro area. Do you have the cheapest brake job in town?
No.
You don't. So why would a thinking person come to you and spend more to have you do their brakes?
Get a better job done.
Better job done, factory trained technicians, good motorcraft parts, here at the Ford store that you're putting on here. The brakes won't squeal, because I think one of the finest things you can say to the customer to help you close the sale, Bob, is of all the systems on your car that make it go, Mr. Customer, would you agree with me? Nothing is more important than the system that makes it stop. When you ask them that, 100 out of 100 are going to say what? Yeah, they will, and that's how you make that sale as part of what you do. The reason I want you to see this is to increase your confidence in the product that you have, and the product, I mean the service that you provide. It's a pretty good service, isn't it? So to unpack this, again, it's very straightforward. One caution is, before you put your grease onto a surface, be sure that that surface is clean. So I use 402 or 403 just on a paper towel. I don't use a red rag on anything. I always use a paper towel. I want to make sure my surface is flawlessly clean. Here's why. If you have a thin film of oil or grease on here, when you put the BG grease on there and you heat it, the BG is going to be fine, but the grease underneath it might give way, and you don't want your BG to blob off in the floor because you had a failure of another grease. So get it clean. If you're using a shop vise or a shop bench, it's critically important that you do that. The only other thing that I would bring to your attention is I did have a paper towel under my display here. And the reason I did that is so I could hold it up and show the audience that in fact did drip off of there. Now if I've just got 2 or 3 guys, they can see that. Also, I can grab this, and you see where that has melted, and I can just simply take that around the room and show my audience.